So this is a much smaller session than the earlier one, and we'll try to close as sooner, much fewer slides, and also more interesting because you'll have a different voice speaking after a little while. There's one of our, as I told you, one of the incubating companies at our incubator will talk about his experience. And this part is more about, we talked about mentoring and monitoring earlier in the afternoon. And this is the other part of, as I said, one part is to help the entity grow in a protected environment, and the other is to take it out, help the incubating company to go out and reach out to the rest of the world. And one of the things which is what is called networking is what we will talk about. And some of the learnings, other learnings that we have, and some of the entities that we have to deal with, such as venture capital funds, and how do we approach, and so on and so forth. So that's the broad outline of what we'll discuss. So, networking is when the incubating company comes into the incubator. Most of them are, especially in our case, they are students who passed out a few years ago, or maybe have graduated, or are faculty members who've had little or no interaction with the commercial world outside. And the only way in which, their entities will become successful is if they have profitable interactions with the outside world. So the objective is to, once their business models are clear, once what they want to do is defined, then they need to start interacting with the external world, with their potential clients, with their potential partners, with their potential investors. So that becomes a key part of, say for example, at our incubator. So how do we really do it? There are 2-3 different ways of the way we approach it. One is that we invite people to come to our incubator. So we would invite a venture capital investor to come to our incubator, talk to the incubators, make the incubators give presentations about their company, and then hope that the fund finds one of the companies interesting, and then move forward. The other is to have actual formal relations with venture funds and angel networks. For example, at Sign we have a formal relationship with Indian Angel Network. So we have signed an agreement with them so that our companies get a faster, it's a process, it's a long process. So we help by this agreement, our companies get a fast track into that process. So eventually, hopefully, we'll get the funding faster. And what we've also agreed is that we will get our companies to make, even if the companies may not be looking for funding, but they will be allowed to make a pitch to the angel network and get their feedback. So this is one of the ways in which we try and network them into. The other is to invite entrepreneurs who've been successful. Maybe some of them may be from the same field as the incubating companies, to come and speak about their experience and their learnings, which then the incubators can use. Then there are industrial associations such as NASSCOM, or there are various industry associations for different industries, and either go and meet people there or invite them over to our incubator to start getting some sort of traction in business development side. So for example, if a company has developed a product, we talk to the Computer Society of India and say that, can we get this product to be tested by your members? Or for example, with NASSCOM, we are talking if they can help companies in their marketing of the product in overseas countries. So those are the sort of interactions we try to engineer through our relationships. Also, in our case, we have a fairly illustrious alumni. Many of them are, entrepreneurs themselves or are venture funds. So we try to connect the incubator to these people. There's no real formal process to it. It's as and when it happens, you sort of connect. When you meet somebody in the outside world and say, hey, this company could be of interest to you, and then you connect them to them. Also, many of us come with past business experience, so that helps. Having relationships of the past can be used for the companies here. There is no real formal process to it. It's fairly ad hoc. Maybe one needs to look at making it more formal in one way or the other. So just take a little more time on venture capital, because as we said that most of early stage companies are dependent for their survival for getting venture funds, because before they can get to break even point, 2, 3 years or 4 years would have passed in many cases, and they will need that money for their product development, for their marketing expenses, for their other costs. As you know, venture capitalists are looking for high growth companies which can provide them an exit after 4 or 5 years, so that they put in their money at a lower valuation and exit 4 or 5 years down the road at a higher valuation. And for that, again, they're not only looking at technology, but also looking at the team which can take the company from zero revenues to $10 million revenues in 3-4 years time, because only then would the company have a value to a potential acquirer, or if it grows even faster, for a public listing, when they can exit out of their company. One of the issues that as I said before, Indians, the whole venture capital industry is fairly new in India, and when a venture capitalist comes into your company, you have to start sharing power with the fund, and there are issues which we are still learning, because when the venture capital fund comes into your company, he has certain veto rights, that you cannot appoint a person reporting to you without his permission, or you cannot spend on traveling without his permission, which is outside your business plan. We'll probably hear from it a little later from the incubator who is here. But there are certain rules governing the relationship between the incubator company or the investee company and the venture capital, which means that originally, when the entrepreneur could do whatever he wanted to do with his own money, he could travel wherever he wanted to, he could, fiddle around with the business model, go to one set of clients, not to go to another, because he had full control, or the founders had full control over the company. They will no longer have that control, and that is a process which every entrepreneur has to, who gets invested has to go through to come to terms with giving away certain of his powers to the incoming investor. The value really from a venture capital fund is they have helped other companies to scale up, and apart from bringing just the money, they provide the experience of helping companies to grow, and also they bring in the network to which they belong to. So there is only a certain amount of, we are also doing the same thing, but they do it at a far larger scale, because many of them are international VCs and then can network companies to, potential international clients or partners, even people. And one of the key things that VCs typically do is to get a professional CEO or a professional head of marketing into your company, especially for companies which come from a technology or a product background, who come from a technology background, don't really have marketing exposure, so they help them to do that. See, typically early stage angels will take anywhere between 20 to 40% of your company. So there is no golden way of measuring a company's value. But finally, people work on ballpark figures. So companies will be valued between, say, 4 crores to 8 to 10 crores. That's the sort of range at which the company will get a valuation. And typically the first level of investment will be between 2 to 3 crores. Maybe over a certain milestones, the company has to achieve certain milestones and the money comes in. This is significantly smaller than what you would say a company would get in the US, where costs are much higher. So in India, with less money, you can invest, you can invest in more companies. So it of course has its problems because of this fact that VCs who came into India initially did not want to make small investments, because they would end up managing 200 companies with $20 million, which they don't want to do, because you can't physically manage 200 companies. So that is why VCs in India who came initially looked only at bigger companies. So they said, we are happy to give out $10 million checks, $3 million checks, but not, 100,000 US or 200,000 US. But that is changing, as we saw.
What are the broad parameters based on which the valuation takes place?
So there are no real parameters. So essentially they will see what is the potential exit for them. Say supposing 4 years from now they will sort of make a mental calculation that this company can be sold for, say, $20 million. And I'm looking for maybe 100% return on my investment year on year. So if I'm looking at 100% return year on year, I should invest at a valuation of, say, $2 million. So that will become the valuation today. The company is valued at $2 million. So I invest, say, $500,000 and expect that this will, at a valuation of $2 million, when the company becomes $10 million, I will get 5 times my money. So that's the sort of calculation which VCs do. There's no mathematics to it. It's just partly a matter of a ballpark figure that you will take with less than majority shares in the company, and the company needs, say, 2 crores or 3 crores, and you will expect, if it can potentially lead to a 40 crore valuation, then you will invest, otherwise you will not invest. So that's how it is. Venture capital funds, if you look at statistics, they have performed better than, despite all the dot-com boom and busts, they have performed better than mutual funds. So mutual funds typically will give you, say about 15% return on your capital, whereas VCs will typically give you maybe 20 to 25% return on your capital. So actually smart investors put their money in venture capital funds. We spoke about this earlier, but as we all know, entrepreneurs, and especially technology entrepreneurs, are very focused on their product. And one of the things which networking also helps to do is to focus more on the market, focus more on the client, rather than focus on your product and the features of that product. What does it do to the client? How does it help him to save money? The other thing here is, we again talked about it earlier, that Indians think if my product is cheap, because we are very good bargainers, if my product is cheap, it will sell. And that's actually a huge stumbling block for many of the product companies going out of India who are trying to sell their product, say in overseas markets or even in India. Because if your product is cheap in terms of cost, the perception of the client is that it is also lacking in certain features and so on, and therefore it is priced cheap. It also comes from the situation that because costs are lower in India, you would think, who's going to buy this product for $20,000? But if a similar product is going out in the global market at $20,000 and your product is priced at $1,000, nobody's going to buy your product. And that's how you get, you become a Me Too product in a crowded marketplace. Here, alliances is a key to today's global technology marketing. If you're not aligned with the demand side of the market in one way or the other, if you're not aligned with the key players in the space that you operate, it will be very difficult for you to penetrate into the market. So one of the best ways for early stage companies to make their first sale or get is by allying with an existing player. As I told you, for example, one of our incubator companies has tied up, which is promoted by a faculty member here, has tied up, given away 49% of his company to another company, which is going to help him in marketing. So if you don't have that core skill within your company, you might as well ally with somebody else and get it going. There's no point of owning 100% of something which is not going to sell. Again, this is again a repetition of what we spoke about earlier, that in India we have too much regulation, and here ability to go and going from an academic institution, if the incubator company has a problem with say service tax or sales tax, it really helps if you can help them through the process of saying that they are from an academic institution. If they've done something wrong, take it sort of lightly, so they don't have to pay the usual costs which other companies have to pay dealing with the regulators. I think there is now an advantage that the incubators do not have to pay, and the incubator companies don't have to pay service tax. I think that's one small. The other is to also ensure that they are properly aligned with the arrangements that they may have made, so that they file their returns on time. They, all the corporate filings are done on time. There are no delays and so on, because these actually become roadblocks. Today they may not seem important because there are no investors in the horizon. There's nobody else looking at your company. But tomorrow, there's a global company wanting to do an alliance with you. Will want to check your accounts. Will want to see whether you've done everything right before he comes and signs on the dotted line. So some of these small and painful things are necessary to go through. Also, when VCs come in, they will really go through your accounts and your corporate filings and the agreements that your company has done with a tooth comb. And if you haven't, done it, then you could have problems. It also helps you in the long run in doing all these things, being ready to be a good corporate citizen. Finally, if you do all these things and you get into the habit of doing these things, which Indians find it difficult, to do, helps you to become a good corporate citizen in the long run. So this actually ends the presentation. So we spoke about which model works best in terms of whether it's parent-child or between you and the incubator. It's a parent-child, or it's teacher-student, or it's just a purely commercial relationship. You collect rent and wait for your equity to go down, get liquidation out of your equity. Is that you benefit when he benefits, and vice versa. If that company does well, the incubator eventually in one way or the other makes money. So you build a partnership for the incubator's progress, and not really look at it from a teacher, student, or a landlord and a tenant sort of a situation. Because if the company doesn't do well, you might have a whole lot of rent payable, but that's only on your books. It's not really cash flow. As we heard in the morning from my colleague Poiri, that the legal framework both for the incubator as well as between the incubator and the incubatee needs to be very well defined. Many of, when an incubatee comes into the incubator, he or she may not have the knowledge to go to understand all the nitty-gritties of what is the agreement, but I think you would do well to get them to read, get a lawyer to read it and understand it, because later on there should not be any misunderstandings, coming up later in life. And at that point of time, since their company is really not set up, they don't have any revenue, sales, so the value of equity or the value of what they are signing on to may not seem very big to them. But suddenly that small company becomes $10 million, then 1% is a lot of money. And a lot of problems occur between, incubator. There are two of them here, so I'll be careful. But problems do crop up because of, because the value of the company changes drastically over a period of time. Instead, thinking big, build a scalable business model which can not be restricted by what others have done so far, and look at. And I think the last bit is, and a lot of people who visited our incubator, both VCs and entrepreneurs have said, is to maximize the exposure. The idea of the incubator is to protect them from the environment, but at the same time you have to maximize the exposure in this protected environment to the outside world, because that's a lot harsher, and that's where they have to be eventually. So if you try to protect them and keep them inside the academic institution, they'll sort of get complacent and be comfortable and not really want to try out things and really not know how tough the world is outside. So, any questions? Good. So I will ask Kaushal, who is the founder of a company called Coalcraft, which has a group collaboration software. He'll talk more about it and his experience from the incubatee's perspective.
Just one real quick thing.
Yeah.
I was just wondering about in exposing people to successful entrepreneurs and experts. Do you try to arrange mentoring relationships, like ongoing mentoring relationships, or it's mostly like bringing somebody in to talk for a couple of hours, but it's more about a one-time thing?
Yeah. In general, it is the second one. That is, we get people to come and talk for a few hours and so on. In particular cases where we feel, and the company also feels it has to eventually be mutual, the incubator also feels that is an area where he needs external support, then we encourage them to find a mentor who would come and spend a certain number of hours per month or per quarter with the company and provide certain specific deliverables. And for that we have an equity model where the mentor gets a certain equity of the company.